Joining us now is candidate for Congress, veteran Chris Lewis. This is for Alabama's 5th District, this kind of Huntsville area. And this is, he is running against incumbent Republican congressman who was very tough on immigration, by the way. He's been an ally. Mo Brooks has been an ally of ours like Jeff Sessions has on controlling immigration for a long time. But he's a never-Trumper, and so he's kind of not lived that down. So you go to Alabama, that's Senate race last year. So, Chris, I had to deal with Judge Roy Moore, not a fan. I had to deal with Mo Brooks, never-Trumper, and then Luther Strange, who was probably worst candidate ever. That had to be the worst race in the history of races. Joining us now. I mean, am I bitter about that or what? Joining us now, Chris Lewis. Chris, great to have you, man.
Hey, good morning, John. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the conversation. And first off, let me say, how come the only thing we ever hear outside of northern Alabama is negative? I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have right now is when you step outside of North Alabama, the only thing people see or hear about us are those negative issues, those negative items that come up. It's a stereotype, and it's one that is really, it's not accurate. And it's not accurate. I'll give you an example. We have an amazing group coming in. The FBI is coming into Redstone Arsenal, bringing a large contingent down. They've got to grow. I think they're actually tearing down their facilities in the D.C. area and expanding, but they've got to expand out of that area. They are TDYing roughly 1,300 people for 3 days to North Alabama to gain a 30% retention rate. Mm-hmm. Why? You know, they do a survey that says, before they come, that says the view of northern Alabama on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, is at 2.2 from their employees. After that 3-day TDY, they do another survey. They do an exit survey, and that view is a 4.2. So we in Alabama know what we are. We know that we're good. We know the positives we bring to this country. And to be honest with you, we're tired of hearing the negatives. We're tired of our own representation not spouting the positives about who we are.
Here's why, right? And I just went down there to play a baseball tournament with my son. He's a high school pitcher and a ball player. He plays for the travel national team, the Canes. We went to Hoover Stadium, wonderful stadium outside of Birmingham, wonderful state. But the Judge Roy Moore candidacy and that debacle, because everybody was focused on that, right? I mean, it was a standalone race, nothing else going on. I forget when it was. I went down there. We all went down there to cover it. And it just put such a bad taste in so many people's mouth. And that's why I got to tell you, Chris, when I heard he was running again, I really couldn't believe it. I just think he needs to go away now because the image of him and all the stuff that went on, all the allegations, how distasteful that was. I mean, it gave your state. It just gave everybody this bad vision of it. Now you got to change it. Now let's get to your race, okay?
Absolutely.
What's your beef with Mo Brooks?
So I don't have a beef with Congressman Brooks. I have a view on what representation we in North Alabama should have, and that's different than what I'm seeing right now. My view is we need an approachable, we need an effective representative, and it doesn't matter whether it's our senators or whether it's our congressmen or whether it's our president. If you're not approachable, how can you be effective? That's the challenge that we have in our area. You know, I just listened to Congressman Riddleman talk about the Democrats and how they are so, set in their ways, not willing to change, not willing to move. And he spent that time talking about needing to be able to work with each other. Well, that's the reality of it. We have to work with each other. There are 435 members in the U.S. House of Representatives. For anybody to believe that you're going to get 218 members to think identically is incorrect. We're not a country that is homogenous. We're a country made up of a lot of different individuals, a lot of different people, and a lot of different experiences. And North Alabama is no different than that. So we have to, in order to be effective, in order to actually solve our country's issues, we have to sit down and talk with each other And both parties are guilty of not doing that.
So define when you say Mo Brooks isn't approachable, and I'm going to get to other things because there's got to be other things that is driving your candidacy against an incumbent Republican. So define not approachable, like you can't talk to him, he doesn't answer the phone. What does that mean?
Well, what that means is, does he meet with his constituents? Does he listen to his constituents? Is he listened to by his party? Does his party come there and speak with him? Does the other party come speak with him? You know, when the appearance of whoever you are, whether you're Tlaib, whether you're AOC, whoever it is, if nobody is willing to go knock on your door and say, hey, can you help solve this problem day one? Day one, when I walk into Congress, can you help solve this problem? Are you willing to listen and do that? That's representation. That's effective representation. We hear all the time, hey, look at how people vote. Look at how I voted on this. Look at how I voted on that. That's wonderful. It's great that you can vote correctly on bad legislation. That's wonderful. That's the minimum I would expect you to do. But if we're going to pay you $174,000, any congressman or woman, $174,000, plus the stipend for the staff, I hope you start day one finding a group of people who will work with you to solve the issues.
We're with Chris Lewis. This is our Disruptors series. Chris is running for Congress in Alabama District 5. That's northern Alabama, Huntsville area. He's challenging Republican incumbent Congressman Mo Brooks. Mo Brooks running for U.S. Senate in this special election in 2017, losing a three-way primary. I think he got 9% or something, or maybe 19, but not getting in the runoff then between Strange and Moore. The John Fredericks show endorsed Roy Moore, and it was probably the stupidest of anything I've ever done in my life, ever. EVER. And I regret it, and I don't want anything to do with him or his campaign for Senate. But this is about Chris. So are there any policy differences, Chris Lewis, between yourself and Congressman Mo Brooks?
Well, I think it's funny. The only people that ask about policy differences or about the traditional issues are individuals in the political mindset. I mean, those like yourself and others that are that's what your life is about. Are those politics?
Right.
When I get out and meet with the constituents and I meet with the great people in North Alabama, you know what they care about? Yeah,
what?
They're your standard conservative, right?
Right.
It's your standard red meat issues. But what they really care about is how are you going to solve any of those issues if you can't listen or talk to anyone? If you're just going to grandstand, if you're just going to make big, bold statements to be on CNN or Fox News, if you're just going to vote no on bad legislation, what good are you? That's the issue in North Alabama. And it's amazing because it's not what I thought it was going to be when I got into this. But
so
when I go out and talk to people,
that
that's the number one thing. They're like, look,
is it that Mo
we want somebody to do the job.
Is it that Mo, I mean, look, I mean, and you can say he's doing his job. I mean, he shows up for work in Washington, right? He votes. I mean, it's not like he's skipping out of town.
I don't need a congressman. I don't need to pay $174,000 for a congressman. If all they're going to do is wait until bad legislation shows up and vote no. We can wire a bus down to KIV's desk.
What is it that you want him to do?
She can hit the button. He'll save the.
What is it that you want him to do?
I want any representative to start the first day they're elected. The day they're elected, finding and working with other individuals to solve problems. And to do that, you have to listen. You cannot stand so far to the right, the earth is to the left, and you cannot stand so far to the left, the earth is to the right. 90% of us fall in the middle of that, and we realize that if we're ever going to accomplish anything in Congress, that we are going to have to listen to each other and understand why we each have our own perceptions. If we're not willing to do that, then we really don't need U.S. House of Representatives.
Let me ask you this. By the way, this is our disruptor segment. We're with congressional candidate Chris Lewis running against Mo Brooks, Republican primary 2020, Alabama, Huntsville area. Chris is from Florence. He's a retired U.S. Navy commander. Let me ask you this. Clayton Hinchman ran against him last time. I think Hinchman was kind of saying the same thing, that Mo Brooks basically was not responsive enough, and he got crushed. What makes the Chris Lewis
he got crushed
different?
38 to 62%. And in your terms, that might be crushed. But Clayton didn't get outside of Madison County. That was the reality. I've spoken with Clayton, and he's an amazing gentleman. But he didn't get outside of Madison County. And there's reasons that didn't happen. There's also been another year and a half of the current situation. This Northern Alabama is changing. We still are hardcore conservative. There's no doubt about it. But we're not the Northern Alabama of 10 years ago. Huntsville is about to be the largest city in the Southeast. It will be in a few years. It's the fastest growing. It's the most progressive. And that's expanding outside. So the comparison of, you've got a 5-year incumbent or a 5-term incumbent. This will be the 6th term for Congressman Brooks. And I'll tell you right now, I'm a term limits individual. We ought to be looking for selfless people that go do a good job. But as soon as we elect them, we ought to be looking for who's coming behind them and make sure they have the ability to do that. So I would ask this question. What has our current representation done? As simple as that.
You could ask that.
We, with a 5-term incumbent, ought to be able to rattle that off. A, B, C, D, E, and F.
What has he done? Do you mean like what has he sponsored? What bills has he sponsored? Is that what you're after?
What's he successfully accomplished?
I don't know.
What has he successfully accomplished? Any representation. And again, I'm running for North Alabama. I'm not running against Congressman Brooks, but unfortunately,
what is it that I guess what I'm trying to get here here? I'm not getting the candidacy. Okay, I'm just not getting it, and I like to be upfront and transparent with people.
Sure.
You're running against Mo, and you're saying Mo is unapproachable. Nobody can see him, or does he have constituent services? Does he have office hours?
How do you solve problems in Congress if no one will knock on your door and say, "Hey, let's work together to fix this"? Tell me how you do
work
that.
with Democrats. You want them to work with the other side of the aisle. Every time Republicans try to do that, they get screwed. Would be an argument that they would have, that faction would have. I'm just not sure that you're going to unseat a 5-term congressman based on how many phone calls he returns.
America's tired of hearing it's all the Democrats' fault, it's all the Republicans' fault. It's one side or the other side.
All right, so you want to get there. What? Now we're getting somewhere. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting away from he doesn't return emails to you want to represent Northern Alabama, and you want to work across the aisle in a bipartisan way that is not looking for the right-wing soundbite on Fox News, and you want to get things done. So you want to take let's take an example. Here's an example. Guns, right? The president lays out, says, yeah, you know what? Maybe we need to get universal background checks. Maybe we need to get red flag law, right? All the hard right, no, we can't do that. And all the hard left on the other side says, no, that isn't enough. And so nothing happens, right? And of course, Mo Brooks.
Sounds like almost every issue currently in Congress right now, doesn't it?
So, yes. And that's been one of my issues, that everybody goes back to their rabbit holes and we do nothing. So if you were in Congress now, would you be willing to take up in Northern Alabama, everybody owns a gun, right? Everybody's Second Amendment. Would Chris Lewis be willing to take up the president's bipartisan initiative to get comprehensive background checks? Would you take that up as an example, Chris Lewis, of you getting things done and working across the aisle? Is that a legitimate example?
I would be willing to support President Trump. I would be willing to get with both sides. And we have problems in the Republican Party, too. Let's not be naive and say this is all the Democrats, okay? We have Republican elected officials who are more concerned about the position they're in and the money they're making than they are about the benefit of this country. So it's both sides. I would be willing to sit down with anybody and work through any issue, whether it's gun control, whether it's immigration, whether it's border, whether it's national security, address the perceptions, address the realities, and propose and come up with a solution that actually accomplishes something, and we can vote and successfully move forward. All we have done for the last decade is rule by executive power because Congress isn't willing to work together. It's as simple as that.
I mean, I get what you're saying, Chris.
Look at Trump. Trump got elected because America was tired of it.
Well, Trump got elected as a disruptor, and also he got elected. The Republican Party
still doesn't want Trump.
You're right. He got elected. Part of it is he was a businessman. He was going to get things done, not ideologically driven, and he was going to work across the aisle. Now, you're 100% right there. My question is that a platform in a conservative district like 5, Alabama, conservative incumbent Mo Brooks, very tough on immigration, right? He's been on my show many times. He's one of our big allies with that. I mean, is working across the aisle.
What good is being an ally on immigration if you never actually solve the problem? If you never actually propose.
Well, nobody in Congress has solved the problem. Well, nobody in Congress. I mean, look, now wait a minute, Chris. There's 435 people in there.
You're exactly
Nobody
right,
solved the immigration problem. Jeff Sessions didn't solve the immigration problem either, and he was probably the biggest hardliner we had. And I've had them both on my show many times. And then, of course, Jeff went down in flames and all that, but as Attorney General. But my question is, and this is just a rhetorical question. It's not aimed at the Chris Lewis campaign. Can somebody come in a conservative district and say, I'm as conservative as you are, but I am willing to compromise, talk to constituents, talk to Democrats, and get things done? And is that a reason enough for people to vote out Mo Brooks? I don't know. I would say if I had to bet, I'd say you got to have something else. Then he hasn't gotten any legislation passed, and he didn't return somebody's email. I mean, I just don't see it, man. I don't see it.
Yeah, I get you, John. I get you. And again, you are a political-minded individual, right? You have done this. You've lived this. You've experienced it. You know what the norms are. But I'll tell you right now, in North Alabama, it's not the norm anymore. I get out there and I meet people. I'm out there meeting my constituents. This is the only thing I'm doing. It's my family and this. I have stopped my businesses. This is what I'm doing every day. When I'm done here, I've got 4 other events. Those individuals that I get out and meet, they are concerned with
I'm going to follow your race.
Listen to us. Take our conservative values. Go to D.C. Stay off CNN. Stay off Fox. Start day one finding good people that are willing to sit down and listen and work together to find a solution. Now, North Alabama is not naive enough to believe that electing Chris Lewis is going to change the world.
Right?
But they are smart enough to believe that if we don't start to make a change right now, my kids, my grandkids, your grandkids are going to wake up one day and go, what the heck did my parents do?
You've got a kindred spirit. I mean, I like to get things done. Everybody knows that. I'm not a purist or an ideologue. And that's why, I can back different people to try to get results. And I'm a big supporter of the president, as you know.
John, let me say one thing real quick. So
go ahead. We got to go.
I know we're short. I was a strategic analyst for NATO. The role of that is to take a project. You have about 12 months with 2 people, and you drive it to resolution, drive it to solution. If you think it's a challenge to get 50 states that have a common law and a common language to work together, imagine 29 nations that really have no reason to do anything together. Try driving that. That's the experience I bring to this.
Okay. I'm a doubter, right?
That's
I don't
okay.
see it.
There are a lot of them out there.
I'm honest enough to tell you that. I don't see how that platform is going to unseat Mo Brooks after 5 or 6 terms. I don't see it. But here's what I'm going to do. I hear you, bud. I hear you. I'm going to follow your race. I'm going to have you back. We're going to follow it. I know your first segment, you're out raised 5-1. Actually, I didn't think 5-1 was that bad. I am going to follow it, and maybe you're going to make a believer out of me. I tell you what else I'm going to follow.
You made that statement about being outraised 5-1. I wasn't asked to run. I don't come from money. I'm not a politician.
Right.
And I raised that amount of money in about 6 weeks. So
no, I don't think it was a bad showing.
You know as
I don't
well
think it
as
was a bad
the
showing.
SEC regulations are incumbent protection.